I'm Chris Newton, creator of Feed, the Vampire Mythos RPG. In 10-Minute Mythos, I prove the endless possibilities of vampire role-playing by taking one random inspiration and using it to sketch out an original vampire mythos, all in 10 minutes. No prep, no script, just one gamer who loves a good vampire story. Wish me luck. The user was Ginger Thunder, and I ran across this and just thought it was perfect for Feed, so I decided to just drop everything and do an episode of the show. The prompt is, you're a group of friends and you're about to begin your first day as high school freshmen. And he lists the system as Dread. Now obviously I'll be using instead Feed, the Vampire Mythos role-playing game. But I like the idea of that as a horror story and just starting from there and figuring out what you could do with it. So that's what I'm going to do. So the first thing is I definitely do want it to be horror. I think the easy way to go in a high school story or any kind of gaming with kids, with child characters, is to go in the direction of comedy. But I think there's actually a lot of horror potential out of high school. There's this sense of alienation, of not understanding the building, not knowing the people. You can kind of tap into a lot of fears that everybody has of, getting lost, not making friends, all that stuff. I think you could really pump that up into a worthwhile horror story. So that's the direction I want to go. The other thing is that I think this, because it's a horror story, you need to bring in the definite aspects of vampire story, the vampire-specific stuff that can be terrifying. And vampire stories have a long tradition of being a lot about setting. So I think that makes a lot of sense to do with the high school. Again, the layout of the high school seems intriguing to me. And so I like the idea that there could be undead creatures, there could be vampires kind of concealed here, not just socially, but physically. I know my high school had lots of little nooks and crannies that as you stayed there, you would learn all the spots and you would figure out, where you could go, like in between the portables and like little maintenance areas and places under the school and all that stuff. So I like the idea of using the physical layout as a layering place for vampires. Also, high school is a place that is really full during the day and tends to be really empty at night. And you could use that contrast. So I definitely want to have vampires who have the traditional vulnerability to sunlight. So they're hiding on the campus. They come out at night. There's a certain kind of kitsch element to vampires in high school that I want to get away from. I want to engineer the setting such that this really is scary and not funny or campy. So I definitely don't want the vampires to attend the high school or anything. And I also don't want them to be kind of, wandering the halls with goblets of blood or whatever, and sort of using it as an Elysium, like in Vampire the Masquerade. Instead, what I want to do is focus on these sort of marginal areas of the school, these secret locations where students don't really go, and set them up in a really brutal way. Maybe people aren't actually just being killed, but they're being butchered there. They're being drained of blood. These could be vampires who one of the things you can do in Feed is have vampires who don't have the traditional vampire benefits of like fangs and all the things vampires use to hunt easily. So these could be vampires who need blood, but who don't have the ability to like drain it up through fangs or anything like that. So they actually need to drain it out of people, and they're using the high school for that. Why they would use the high school specifically is not clear, and actually I'm not totally sure that it needs to be made clear. You've got characters who are, again, alienated and confused, and they may not know the circumstances that led up to this. So it can at least be in the background. If we come up with a great idea, then fine. But if not, then I'm fine with just saying, for whatever reason, it's convenient for them to operate here. Now, the other thing is we want vampire protagonists, which is, I think, a little more difficult because, kids attending school, they have to go out during the day. They don't have a lot of privacy in their lives. But at the same time, those very things could make this really compelling to actually have vampire protagonists. So what I'm thinking of doing is having a thing where it's a gradual transformation, that the vampires who are lurking in the school, who are like sort of the monsters of this story, the antagonists of this story, they've really adapted. And for that reason, they're all set in. They can prey on people relatively easily. They've got concealment from society, but they're also really vulnerable to the sun. they've totally made the shift. Whereas these new characters, right, they're just preparing for their first day of high school. So what I'd think of doing is maybe in the first session, have them just sort of getting used to the school and have some strange things happen that the characters aren't yet able to place as definitely strange because they don't know the school. So people in places they shouldn't be, people missing who should definitely be there, things not going off when they're scheduled, strange noises. All this stuff is stuff that you might think there's a perfectly rational explanation for as you're beginning your time at school. Then they get attacked. They somehow get cornered, they get lost. Maybe you could have some kind of out of the way place that the characters have to go to like get their books for their first class or whatever, and they get attacked and brought in some way. And this could be accidental. It could be that these vampires can turn people accidentally. That it doesn't normally happen, but that it can if perhaps they're interrupted or something like that. The sort of thing that you see in Let the Right One In, where if you don't kill the person after feeding on them, then they'll rise again. The vampires are aware of this concern. But in any case, these kids get attacked, and then they begin a slow transformation, so they can still go out in the day, but they're beginning to get this hunger. They're beginning to have a different relationship to their peers, I think, is going to be an important thing. Because there's an obvious parallel here with like adolescence vampirism, like the change in the body, the changing relationships, the feeling of kind of being thrust into a new kind of experience of the world, but people don't see it. Like the people around you don't see that change necessarily. Or if they start to, then that's a secret that has to be kept. It's this sort of, this awkwardness and this conflict about identity. So you could play that up by having the characters begin a change into a monstrous kind of vampire, but it's slow. It's just beginning. And the vampires at the school are aware of them, but they can't come out during the day. So the kids still have to continue at the school, but they're starting to develop the mindset of a predator. So they're beginning to see the students and even the other teachers, as potential victims, looking for ways to attack them, developing this hunger which they have to then try to suppress. What would be good here is to have it so that drinking blood is sort of like during this stage, maybe there's a critical point where you sort of become a full vampire, and it requires a tremendous amount of blood. It's like your body's trying to do all this work to change you, and it needs blood to fuel that process. And then your need for blood goes down substantially once that change is complete. But that changes you into an inhuman creature, and it makes it impossible for you to reverse the process. So these kids are actually much hungrier than the full-grown vampires who are lurking at the school. But they won't change as long as they can resist the urge to feed. Because without the blood, their bodies can't change. So what I'm thinking is maybe these are kids, as the prompt suggests, they're friends, they go into school, they get attacked. Now they start to experience these changes, and they have to kind of compare notes with each other and figure out, what's going on, what's happening with them, and also resist the urge to feed. The idea of using dread for this game makes me think suspense. So you want a suspense-driven horror story. I think the element of discovery, the risk that you're going to be found out for what you are, is a substantial thing that could drive that. Another one is the fact that the vampires, the antagonists, the vampires who want to either recruit you or kill you off, are lurking all around you all the time during the day, even when it's safe. It's just that they can't come out. So in any dark space in the school where the kids are forced to stay all day, at any time they could be attacked. And you'd want to make sure that the characters keep hearing voices, they keep hearing sounds. Maybe they're trying to lure them into dark places where they can attack, because the vampires in the school want to, again, either bring them into the fold or get rid of them so that they don't bring attention to the school. The potential for a cure is something I think you would want to play up in this story. If these kids are hopeless, then they have no reason to keep trying to resist. But you'd want to drop heavily the idea that this could be reversible. I think the cliche of people going to like the library or the internet to try to figure all this out, again, that's a little more campy and it can be a little cliche. So it makes me think that this story would involve somebody who kind of knows what's happening. You need some NPC who can somehow clue them in. And I don't know exactly who that would be. Perhaps somebody who's successfully fought this off in the past. But you don't want the characters to have anyone they can trust in their daily lives, because that hurts the suspense angle. So it makes me think this should be somebody who maybe contacts them online. That could actually be cool. Someone who's contacting them anonymously, trying to give them advice. And this person turns out, like at first it's like, who is this person? Can we trust them? Then it turns out, oh, they're right. They're not just a weirdo. This is what's happening to us. Our bodies are changing the way this person said they were. And they're giving us useful advice. And then twist it around on the characters like, this is not somebody you can completely trust. This is not an unambiguous good guy. Maybe this is somebody who's living with vampirism, doesn't like the vampires at the school, or has a soft spot for the kids. So that's time's up. This actually turned out to be a really fruitful prompt, and kind of made